Hello everyone, I'm A2ZedHealth from A2ZedHealth. This video is about sugar. Sugar has nothing to do with calories and kilojoules. Sugar is an addictive poison which causes chaos in the body, and I'm going to explain why. Sugar kills. I'll give you a little bit of a rundown of what's been happening in the last 60 years in the whole sugar story. In the 1950s, studies showed that if you feed sugar to animals, they become pre-diabetic and fat. They develop what we now call the metabolic syndrome, where your triglycerides go up, your HDL cholesterol falls, you develop insulin resistance, you get obesity, you get intra-abdominal fat, you get inflammation, and basically the whole body shuts down because every organ is sick. Sugar is the thing that is driving these diseases today. In the 60s and 70s, you had milk delivered to schools to make sure that kids were getting enough calcium in their diet. This was all well and good then as a token effort, though now they are pouring large amounts of sugar into the milk. In the 1970s, sugar was introduced as high fructose corn syrup. Other sugars in our food also went up. In the 1980s, we saw the introduction to sports drinks. Gatorade started us off with a high salt, high sugar drink, which was supposedly intended for athletes. Who drinks Gatorade and Powerade today? Kids. School lunch menus used to consist of salads, sandwiches, and fruit, though today children can only choose from chips, burgers, lollies, and soda. Today, fat consumption has gone down, and sugar consumption has gone up, and so too has heart disease and obesity. People are on statins to control their cholesterol, though cholesterol is needed to produce hormones. People continue to eat high sugar diets, which takes them further away from ultimate health. Sugar has been shown to be responsible for obesity, diabetes, cancer, hypertension, stroke, fatty liver disease, and many others. Study after study has shown that low-fat, high sugar diets cause all of these diseases mentioned. So why are they still teaching in schools and universities to lower fat and increase sugar consumption? Why are the articles in magazines and newspapers telling you to follow the food pyramid? Our ancient ancestors' nutrient levels were dramatically higher than ours, simply because they ate foods that had high levels of minerals, vitamins, and other phytochemicals, which benefits the cells and keeps our systems strong and balanced. Eating a balanced diet is the right advice, though through the research it's clear that a balanced diet should not contain high levels of empty food, and that's really what that lower, larger section of the food pyramid is. The system of eating well should have no pyramid. The way I see it, it is two categories: the food that benefits our cell structures and food that doesn't. That's not where I'll stop though, because in modern food science, companies are able to take certain elements like fructose out of healthy food and use it by itself. An apple, for example, has a little bit of fructose, and if you take the fructose out of 100 apples and then place that in one processed item, filled with other ingredients from other foods, it becomes unhealthy. This is the processed world we live in, and this is why we are fat and disease-ridden. The number of obese children in the last 20 years have doubled, and this is due to a high sugar diet. Studies show that if a child is diagnosed with diabetes before the age of 15, then their lifespan is decreased by 17 to 27 years. A little word about enzymes. Our body sorts out which enzyme is needed to break down which food. Turns out that the enzyme fructokinase, the enzyme needed to break down fructose, depletes our energy source ATP. The enzyme known as glucokinase helps to generate ATP. Let's not read too much into the names as far as fruit consumption goes, because in fruit there is fructose and glucose. The issue with fructose is only when it's taken out of a fruit and put into another food in higher proportions. In a piece of fruit you get vitamins, minerals, fiber, and water as well as glucose and fructose, so the small amount of fructose is neutralized quite considerably. What the liver does to fructose is really unique. Fructose does not suppress the hunger hormone ghrelin. Acute fructose does not stimulate insulin or leptin. If insulin doesn't go up, then leptin doesn't go up, meaning your brain thinks you haven't eaten. So because glucose is either burned instantly or stored in the liver as glycogen, it doesn't create the issues that fructose does. Fructose is not stored in the liver and makes uric acid go up. The uric acid is the thing that leads to cardiovascular disease, obesity, hypertension, and the other diseases mentioned. Uric acid also inhibits nitric oxide, which keeps the blood vessels healthy. When we lower sugar and increase our consumption of beneficial enzymes, our system then starts to revive itself because it's no longer running at a toxic, acidic level, but rather alkaline and clean. We have developed traditions and habits that are so ingrained that we think it's actually healthy to eat sweets and cakes as a treat. The example I can give you of this is the old line your parents used to say to you, "Eat your dinner first, and then you can have dessert." Does anyone see the problem with that? Instead, let's consider saying this to your children. Eat your dinner. It's yummy. It's awesome. It's nutritious. It's tasty. Eat until satisfied. Which kid or adult is going to be able to eat dessert when they are truly satisfied? If there is sugar and a lack of nutrition in the meal, then obviously we search for more. For two reasons. If the meal has sugar in it, then our ghrelin and leptin have been switched off, and if you haven't given the body what it needs in the first place, then obviously you still crave something. We also live in a world where we think the only problem with sugar is the weight you can put on from its use. Many people around the world have never been educated on what sugar does inside the body and the disease and devastation that is caused directly from its use. I think a lot of people have the blanket and stubborn, misinformed, uneducated view that if I exercise, then I can eat all the sugar I want. I've been saying something for many years, and that is that this is not a conversation of calories in, calories out. A calorie is not a calorie. Calories or kilojoules are just an energy unit. I'm not going to sit here and do a video on energy units. The whole notion of calories in, calories out was thrown out already in the late 90s, when people's weight and the amount of disease popping up had started to get to epidemic proportions. So the people who are still walking around calling out and telling people calories in, calories out, you are not helping. If you want to help someone, give them an uncooked piece of broccoli. I know plenty of people in poor countries that would kiss your feet for that. Here in Australia or in America or in England or whatever westernized country you can think of, if you give someone a piece of broccoli, they would probably tell you to get stuffed and throw it back in your face. If the health of the world is going to change, then the culture needs to change back to how it used to be. Humans are hunter-gatherers. Tell me, from which stream or from which tree, and in which forest did the Oreo cookie come from? Let's talk about a few things we can do to lower or even get rid of the sugar in our diet. Get rid of all sugar beverages in the house. Drink water. And you know that from my last video that non-fluoridated, non-chlorinated water is what you should be drinking. If you want to have juice, make sure you're only drinking vegetable juice. Fruit juice gives you way too much sugar. Alcohol is toxic, so stay away from that. Pretty much any item that has sugar in it, stay away from it. This includes bread. Vegetables should provide most of your carbohydrate needs. If you want sugar, then eat fruit, which is packed full of antioxidants. And as I said, don't turn it into juice, because then you need a whole heap of fruit for just one glass. A safer option of carbohydrate to bread, cereal, and pasta is rice. Rice does not drive your blood sugar levels as much as other white foods, so keep that in mind. I personally do not have any bread. I don't eat table sugar, and basically the only thing that is considered sugar that I eat is fruit. We also know that in ancient tribes, and even in communities today, that do not have many plant-based glucose, there are humans that are getting their glucose from raw meat, as straight after a kill there is still glucose in the bloodstream of an animal. We know that school lunch menus need to be changed, and Jamie Oliver has started a massive overhaul that has been beckoning for a long time. What can you do to help? Can we ask governments to ban sugar in school? The ingredients of food in school should be food which benefits the children's growth and brains. There should be no ingredients in the food at school which harms the children. Currently, just about every ingredient in these school lunches are harmful. My closing thoughts. I believe that if we can start by educating children about the dangers of sugar at a young age, then we wouldn't have such epidemic proportions of sickness caused by sugar. I also know that serotonin, the feel-good hormone, goes up when we eat sugar, which is one of the reasons why it's so addictive. When something is addictive, people would justify having it any way they can. I'm not saying that ridding yourself of sugar can be an easy thing like it was for me, but what you can do is start somewhere. I'm Adam Zaks. This is A2ZedHealth, guiding you, pushing you, and moving you through to ultimate health.